Hello everyone, welcome back to the course. So in this video and in coming 2-3 videos, we are going to talk about what is GIT and what is GitHub before we actually dig into the other tools for the deployment like GitHub, Jenkins or Bitbucket or Azure DevOps. We are going to talk about any of these two tools, so we'll talk about those in the coming lectures. But GitHub and GIT is very essential or very important to get into those tools. That's why we are just going to talk about these. So what we will talk is we'll talk about what is version control system VCS, what is GIT, what is GitHub, how we can install GIT, and how we can sign up for GitHub if you don't have the account already with you. So let's quickly talk about what is a version control system. So version control system is also known as source control system. If you have a software and you wanted to track the changes, like what were the code or what were the functionalities in the version 1, you can have that. What were the functionalities in version 2, version 2.0, like that. You can have multiple things over there in the version control system. And what are the benefits? Like you can have the complete long-term changes history of every file. That means if you have a file, initially you have an index.html file, you just added a hello world there, and then after you added some pictures, you added some social connections, you added some photos there, you added some carousel, all kind of things you added there. So when those things were added, who was the developer who added those things? Everything you can get you can get as a history whenever you are using version control system. Branching as merging, that means you can have, every developer can have their own copy of the source code. You can create a separate branch for every functionality, every feature, every bug fix, every hot fix. For every single thing you can have your own branch, and that can be used as a playground for the developers where they can play around the changes, and your original changes or your main changes will remain intact. There will not be any changes, and once you are done with those, you can just simply go ahead and merge those with your main branch with your original changes, so that you can make those changes live. And the last thing is that traceability. You can trace every single bug, you can trace every single feature very easy with the help of version control. So this is the picture that you can see is a picture of a traditional system whenever the developers or the companies were not using version control system. So what was happening here is, as a developer, you might have done, I did it personally, you created a version 1, you said that okay, you created version 2, that is also up to here, you are okay, your software is working fine. Now what happened, you made some changes to version 2.1, there were a few issues, you said okay, almost final, you said that version 2.1 point final, you said that version 2 point final, then you said 2.1.1. So what is happening is you are creating the multiple copies of the same thing. And also what is happening is this will never have the updated code which is there here, this will also never have the updated code which is here, this similarly these and these will never be having the code, the updated code which are here. So if accidentally or by you deploy this code, you will lose the changes whatever you made into the coming features or into the next features. That is again was a problem in the traditional version control system which you were using, and you were using your system to store. This was also using the memory into your PC. So that is how, like, the comparison between the SVM and SCM and this particular traditional system. Now let's talk about introduction to GIT. Before we dig down into the GIT, let's quickly break a myth, which is many people say that GIT is GitHub, which is not the case. GIT is not equal to GitHub, and GitHub is not equal to GIT. So these are the myths. You no need to get into that. You just need to be clear with your mind, saying that GIT is something else, GitHub is something else. Now let's talk about GIT. Then we'll talk about GitHub. So again, GIT is an open source version control software which was created in 2005. and which we are working on Linux operating system. Now it can work for any system like Linux, Windows and Mac, but earlier when it was founded, it was only working for Linux operating system. And the main purpose of this introducing GIT was again the version control tool. That's why it created. Again, this is an example of distributed version control system. And then here we have got like that's what we discussed in the previous traditional model. We were having multiple versions of the same thing. Instead of having those, we can have the multiple version which is controlled by SVN. Your system or your PC will only consuming the memory based on which version you are in. There will not be stored the multiple version in your system. Everything else will be stored in SVN. And in the GIT, every developer will have the working copy where they can do play around with the changes. They can make any changes what they want, and once everything is done, again they can merge those changes to the master branch. So again, to wrap up, GIT is a open source version control software, and this is used for version control. This is not GitHub. Now let's talk about GitHub. What GitHub is? So GitHub is a software which does support version control system. You can take help of a GitHub to implement a version control system. If you don't want to use GitHub, you can use Git independently. You don't need to use GitHub with GIT. You can use any other system. You have got GitLab, you have got Bitbucket, you have got Azure DevOps. These are few other alternatives of your GitHub. If you don't want to use, you can use any of these. But you cannot use GitHub without GIT. When we say that GitHub without GIT, as you wanted to use a source version control, you must need to use some software where you can store the various versions, and you can share with your developers, with your managers, or with your architects, where they can go and review the codes. And there are some remotes. The remotes are nothing, basically the repository in the Bitbucket, GitHub, Azure DevOps, or GitLab. We don't need to use remote we don't need to use remote if we wanted to use GIT, but it is always a best practice to use remote to share the changes. So how it is going to do is, suppose that you have got local repositories, you have got remote repositories. You can do the development over here. Once the development is done, you can just push your changes to the remote repositories, and then you can share with your developers. So that's how you can do. That's how your GitHub and GIT works in the combination. Along with those, you can also use GitLab, Bitbucket, Azure DevOps. Whatever the commands we are going to run or we are going to learn as a part of GIT, which will always be same across all the software, you don't need to worry about that. Like even you are using GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, whatever the commands that we are going to learn, those will be same across all the source version control software. So that is about our GIT and GitHub. Now let's talk about the installation part of our GIT and GitHub. So to install this GIT, first thing we must need to install GIT into our system. So to install this, let's quickly go to the browser and see how we can download the software. So in the browser, what you need to do is you just need to type GIT download, and the very first link is git-scm.com downloads. Based on whatever your operating system is, you can download. I'm using Windows. I can download this Windows. I've already installed, so I don't need to install this GIT in my window again. Now once you have downloaded, once you have installed, what you need to do is just open command prompt, and what you need to do is say here git-version, and it will say unknown version. Okay, that is working. If you want to see if it should be git-version, you can see this is the version which is there installed in my Windows. So that is how you can download and install your GIT. This doesn't require to set any sort of path into your environment variable, but again if you get any error saying that GIT is unknown command, or GIT is not recognized as external or internal command, you can just follow the same way for adding the variable in the environment path that we have followed while we installed our SFDX CLI. This is the one thing to install GIT. The next thing is that you need to create a GitHub account. So what you need to do is you just need to visit a URL called github.com. Okay, I'm already logged in here. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly go ahead and log out. You will see the window like this. If you already have GitHub account, you don't need to sign up this. You can skip this part. If you don't have, just click on this sign up button, and you just need to provide a username. So I'll say what your name is. Suppose that my name is Amit Singh. I can say Amit Singh, and as I'm a Salesforce MVP, I can add hyphen MVP. You just need to provide your email. You can say that SFDC Panther, whatever your email is. You just provide the email, provide a password, and it will ask to verify. You just need to verify like what is Spiral Galaxy. You will see here. So these kind of things you need to verify, and then click on create account. Once you will create an account, it will send a verification email to your provided email. Open that email, do verify, and then you are done. So once you are done, what you need to do is, if it is not automatically logged in, you need to log in using your username and password which you have provided. So that's my username and password. And once you need to see your profile, you can just go to github.com and provide your username, hit enter. So you will see this is my profile, and if you want to follow me, you can just go ahead and follow me. This is not the mandatory thing. So that's it about this video, and into the coming video we'll talk more about GIT, how GIT works, and we'll do few hands on there. So thank you for your time. We'll see you into the next video.